The plan was to create an international radio station. All of a sudden, I had 3 million people listening to the radio.
3 million.
On Saturdays and Sundays, when my parents want to go out to have lunch and whatnot, I'll be like, I got to stay home because I got to listen to the ICRT Top 20.
Now ICRT is also live streams on Twitch. I take requests through live stream.
Now this year, the 45th year in Taiwan as ICRT. Anybody that know what that is, raise your hand. Erica, you really?
It looks like a license plate without the license.
What's really cool about this is that you can edit literally.
Oh, no, don't. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's Taipei Tonight Show. I'm your host, Dennis Nie. Today we have a very special show coming your way. We're going to take you back in time just a little bit. Now, remember the days when there was no internet? We had to rely on a couple of TV stations on the island for only a few hours of TV programming every day. And then a few radio stations that can hear your favorite songs or news and broadcasts. And remember that Carpenter song that when I was young, I used to listen to the radio waiting for my favorite song? My kids have a hard time understanding that. Dad, what do you mean waiting? Just play the song you like. Yeah, we had to wait for the song that you wanted. And during that time, Taiwan was still under martial law in the late 70s and early 80s. But bam, a radio station was born here. And it rocked the entire island. It was a full-on North American style radio station with morning drive. It was loud, it was hip, it was interactive, it was a party on the airwaves. And that station is ICRT. Back in the days, I was a DJ at one point and I was a programming director at ICRT for a while as well. And today we're very excited to celebrate this iconic, cultural, influential media that's been here for almost half a century. Ladies and gentlemen, ICRT FM 100. All right, ladies and gentlemen, 45th birthday of ICRT. We are in the radio station. This is like home to me. I've worked here most of my life. What goes on air? It's behind that door. Let's see who's here today. Dude! Hey! Richie Walker! Oh! Rick Monday is right here.
Ni hao.
Dude! You gotta get
Back in on it!
Oh my goodness! Dude!
Yeah. I've seen you like forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Stewart. Look at this guy. You haven't aged a day.
Wait a minute, I gotta give away something. Hold it. I'm gonna have to go to it right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's me. I'm Dennis. I am back in the studio, and welcome to today's ICRT FM 145th anniversary.
Hey, how you doing, dude? Hey.
Whoa.
No, I'm strangling Ron, and Dennis is punching me, and Ron is being defended.
What were we thinking about? What were we doing?
Yeah, we did it.
100 FM, ICRT, Taiwan.
Come sit down, guys. Thank you. Wow. A lot of listeners from different parts of the world, especially, obviously, growing up in Taiwan. These are the voices that accompanied so many people growing up in Taiwan, and the one and only legendary Tony Taylor.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
This is my big brother. This is my true big brother. Right? I was the new kid on the block, and Tony was my mentor at ICRT. I remember he sat me down one time, one of the first few days I was on air, and he said he sat me down. Dennis, you're sounding great, but man, you're speaking way too fast. I speak English and I can't understand what you're talking about.
Well, sometimes you just got to talk real fast to get it out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We're here, obviously, the amazing 45th anniversary. Time flies, huh? Of ICRT. And today, the lineup, this is the perfect lineup. We have rare, medium, and well done.
Well done.
Right? you guys
Very
are
well
all
done.
You guys are all here. ICRT, obviously, it's really quite an amazing entity to exist on the island here. And Tony, you're here from day one, right?
Well,
45
actually,
years. Well, you-
not day one, but in the beginning.
Yeah.
In the beginning. I was working in Honolulu, Hawaii at 93Q. Craig Quick, who was the general manager of ICRT,
Yeah.
gave me a phone call and said, "Hey, you want to come to Taiwan and be PD and be on the radio in Taiwan?" I said, "Where's that?" And I knew where it was. I knew where it was. And we worked out a deal, and February 21st, 1984, I arrived in Taiwan.
Wow. But we have to tell the story. I mean, how did Taiwan end up with an English radio station, but not just any? It was truly out of this world. It was a first North American style radio that really rocked. How do we end up with that?
Well, as it goes, ICRT, the I stands for international,
Yeah.
right? And the plan was to create a really good, as best as we could, international radio station featuring music from all over the planet and featuring personalities from not only Hawaii, where we were from, Craig and I were from, but from international, from England, Indonesia, Thailand, England. It was a lot of different exciting places that these people were from, and they brought that excitement with them.
But at that time, Taiwan was a very different place.
It was a very different place. Martial law was in effect, so
Wow.
the people were having to behave themselves in public, which we foreigners were not really good at, but we learned it. And there was a thing called a GIO. It was in charge of broadcast in Taiwan, the Government Information Office. And whenever we made a boo-boo on the air, we got a phone call right away and say, "Oh, you can't do that."
Oh, so it was serious back then, right? The media. But the overall sound was just different from the radio station, I
Right,
would
but
imagine.
we brought in a whole engineering team from Hawaii
Okay.
to make the station sound just as beautiful as we could make it. Sonically wonderful with kick bass and good highs and good music, and we did it. It took some time. It didn't happen overnight, but there were a few stepping stones in the way that we had to cross. But we finally got it right, and it started working. And all of a sudden, I had 3 million people listening to the radio every afternoon,
3 million.
according to the
My
ratings.
goodness. So it was truly amazing at that time. I mean, considering not only Taiwan was it very different under martial law, English definitely wasn't the primary language here.
No.
So this was a foreign language radio station, but yet it created such a movement and such influence on the community here. Joseph, you were one of the people growing up listening to ICR. This was when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
This was before you were.
No, I was
Before
just
you were
telling-
even born.
I was just telling Tony, he never knew actually. When I was in high school, I was here in Taiwan at TAS, and that was the 80s. And on Saturdays and Sundays, when my parents want to go out to have lunch and whatnot, I'd be like, I got to stay home because I got to listen to the ICRT Top 20. And with Tony.
Oh, that was
Taylor.
Tony.
That
Yes.
was Tony.
Yes.
And
yes.
so, if for some reason I had to go out with my parents for lunch, I bought a timer to put on my boombox, so at 2 p.m. it would just automatically record that show for me on tape to be able to listen to him. So yeah, this guy brought me into radio.
Wow.
It's
Without
all my
knowing.
fault. I'm sorry, Joe.
45 years ago, I was 3 at that time. So where are you, Erica?
I was not on this planet
Your
yet.
parents,
I was on the way.
were in middle school probably. You were in LA, so you grew up in a complete different environment.
Yeah, the DJs that I grew up listening to were like Ryan Seacrest. Yeah.
Ryan Seacrest, not even Rick.
Rick Dees.
Rick
Dees.
Right? That's
Rick
our
Dees.
era.
Jeez.
Rick Dees as well. Yeah.
But when you were in the States, did you listen to radio there?
I did.
Right?
I grew up listening to like Kiss FM.
There you go.
And I every day going to school, always turning on the radio.
Yeah.
Like even though I was super sleepy and just not willing to go to class, but that was the first thing I listened to in the morning. And then going again the car ride back home, and in LA you have to drive everywhere.
Right.
The radio was constantly on. So
Yeah.
I think actually it was pretty amazing for me, and like I never expected that I would actually be able to work in radio. And the fact that I was given that opportunity, I didn't take it lightly. I was very nervous, and I remember the reason why I got in was because of this gentleman
It's
right
funny,
here.
yeah.
Oh, yeah?
It's a domino effect, I guess.
Wow. Now this year, the 45th year in Taiwan as ICRT. It used to be a military bunker up in Yamingshan. Engineers or the architects went, knocked out a couple of walls, put some windows in.
Yeah.
And
There were no windows in
there's
that
no
building.
windows, right?
No.
Every single day we were on Yamingshan, a lot of these familiar names. Today we have Bobby Kahn. He's still in radio in Japan. He couldn't be with us here today, but he recorded something. He misses the fans in Taiwan. So Bobby, where are you at?
Hi, Dennis. Hi, everybody. Bobby Kong coming to you from here in Tokyo. To all of the people who listen to ICRT, thank you very much. And what do I remember most? Well, I remember the listeners, the people who used to call into my show. Because, you know, every time I went on the air, interacting with our listeners on the telephone, it was like going to a playground, because people would call in, they'd laugh, they'd have fun, they'd make requests on the telephone, and of course I'd play their favorite songs. Sometimes people would make singing requests. Oh yeah, they would sing their favorite song. And sometimes we did something called, I believe it was called the Xiao Fan Yelling Contest. That's where people would call in and shout out the name or shout out the call of their favorite street vendor. You know, the people in the streets who used to come around in the trucks, and they'd say like, Bata, Bata, Ciao, Bata. Anyway, magical moments were happening all the time on ICRT. So to all of our friends at ICRT, all the staff, all the DJs, all the management, salespeople, and to all of our listeners, especially to all of our listeners, I just want to say, xie xie ni. Thank you for making my life more wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, back to you, Dennis.
Woo, I miss Bobby. Bobby was amazing. The relationships that we had with our fans, some of them were a little over enthusiastic. I think Joe, you're notorious in that field.
Oh, no.
The story. We gotta tell the story
Yeah,
again.
yeah. I'm sure every DJ has a story, but I have one that's pretty impressive. It's kind of like a trilogy because she showed up.
Trilogy.
She showed up 3 times. The first time was when, okay, ICRT was known to interact with listeners a lot. And we did a lot of outside events. So one time we went to Taichung to a nightclub. So, you know, it's like 11 p.m. till 1 in the morning. When I was done with the set with the DJ, I was returning back to our seat. As I was walking through the crowd, I thought, okay, this girl was approaching me. I thought it was just a listener, right? So she had her hand out, and I wasn't really paying attention to like what her gesture was. I thought she wanted to shake my hand. So I was like, you are, and then she punched me right on my chest, right?
Whoa.
And I'm thinking, okay, is this a new way of greeting people now? You know, like punch someone, right?
Hey, what's up? Hey, yo, woo!
And then her second punch landed, third one, fourth one, and then she started yelling my name, Joseph, 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 and then like kind of an angry way, you know?
Whoa.
But the club was so loud, people can't hear what we're saying. When you're in the club, right, everyone's like dancing, and all of a sudden this circle formed for us. We're in the spotlight now, right? And she started throwing punches, and I was like, okay. And then so I grabbed her and just kind of pushed her away. I was like, what do you want? And then she's like, I want to talk to you. And then she just kept on punching me again. And I was like, okay, there's something wrong with her, so I better get the security guard, because I didn't really want to like hold her down or anything.
Oh,
so
boy.
so I went to get a security. He came, and she saw him came, and so she fled.
Okay.
And before I could tell the story to the security, you know, she already left the premises already. So that was part 1. And then came part 2, like a couple months later. She actually showed up at ICRT at our doorstep.
Oh, she came to the station.
She came to the station.
All right, and then?
Back then I was doing a weekend show. So it was like a Sunday afternoon. There was no one at the station, as you know, right, on the weekends. And she appeared at our front door. And then I was there alone by myself. And so when I saw her, I recognized her. I'm like, what are you doing here?
Oh, no.
And then so she's like,
What?
I just want to talk to you. I'm
Oh.
like, no, you're not supposed to be here. I just want to talk to you.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, you want to say something? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute. What do you want to say? But after that, you got to leave, all right? And she's like, okay, but can I come in? I'm like, no, you cannot come in.
You kid? Oh, I didn't know anything about this. This is insane.
And then here's the juice of the story here. And then so about a minute into this conversation, the security guard from downstairs came up. And then he's like, is this your friend? And I'm like, no. And so, okay, immediately he knew, okay, this is an intruder. So he's like, you got to get down onto the ground floor. You can't be here, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, fine. And then the security guard was very apologetic, right? He's like, I'm so sorry. She told me she's going to the conference on the 12th floor, which there was.
Okay.
And I saw her got out of the 7th floor where we're located. And in Chinese, the guard said, 我看她怪怪的.
Oh, she looked a little different.
She looked a little weird.
A little off, yeah.
怪怪的, that's what it means. So I came up to see if everything's okay. That word, 怪怪的, triggered her. She was already on the way down.
Oh, she was there. Uh-huh.
She was already on the way down, and then all of a sudden, down in the hallway, you hear her scream, 怪怪的! Who says I'm 怪怪的?
Oh,
and then she started charging back again.
Oh my goodness.
And then she had like an egg and just threw it at me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
That was only part 2.
All right. Now we got the whole story. So we're setting the record straight. So this is something that was really a little 怪怪的. A little Mandarin lesson here today. 怪怪的 means something a little off. Beside that we make fun of Joe about that all the time. But Joe is one of the most amazing DJs at ICRT, and then congratulations on your Golden Bell.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right,
thank
congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you.
You won your Golden Bell award
last year. Yeah. It was my 3rd time being nominated, and the saying is true. 3 times the charm.
Yeah. 3 times the charm.
Yeah.
And the first time you were nominated, I was the
host.
You were
the host of that.
I was the host of the Golden Bell, and his program was nominated.
Yeah.
I really wish I could have just grabbed it and give it to you, but that, they wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have been 怪怪的, So ICRT as a radio back then, because media is not like today.
Yeah.
There wasn't social media. There wasn't personal platforms and things like that. So ICRT was the go-to place for a lot of celebrities that would come to this part of the world, right?
Yeah.
Erica, are you still interviewing? Do they still come and promote?
I think the only international artist that I've interviewed was Masked Wolf. And that came by really interestingly because I'm also a singer besides being a radio DJ. And I actually covered one of Masked Wolf's on YouTube. And he saw it and left a comment. And then when he was gonna come or go around Asia to do promo, his label specifically asked that I interview him because we had that little
That is so awesome. Tony, you talked to some amazing people in your career as well. Right?
Yeah, right here in Taiwan, I met one of the guys that I just love and adore is BB King.
BB King was on your show.
BB and Ray Charles were on tour together with the Parliament Jazz Tour, right?
Wow.
And they both came to Taiwan at the same time. We were on the same tour. I was supposed to interview BB King and Ray Charles together.
Wow.
Do it for the TV show.
Yeah.
And I show up. BB King shows up. He's got his music director there, and we're all sitting around. Well, where's Ray? Where's Brother Ray at? And people were up knocking on his door, and they couldn't wake him up. He was either
jet lagged
or in the bathroom asleep or taking a hot bath or whatever. But he never bent it down. So I ended up doing the whole interview with BB King. And what a sweetheart of a man.
Wow.
And he's played with everybody.
Yeah.
He's done it. You name it, he's got the t-shirt.
Oh, wow.
And what an amazing guy.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, these were all very historic moments in Taiwan. What about you? You met like so many people.
Yeah, I mean, local and international. International-wise, I've interviewed Florida, Karl Malone, Will Smith, Westlife. Westlife was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Will Smith was even better. But locally,
He didn't slap you, did he?
Not then. Yeah. His kid was with him back then, so I guess he behaved quite.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have Erica here. We're crossing half a decade of radio. So we're gonna put these images on the screen. If you know what it is, go ahead and raise your hand. All right. So let's see. These are essentials in a radio station studio. The first thing we have. What is this? Anybody that knows what this is?
Oh boy.
You really don't know? Do you know?
I've never seen one personally. I feel like I'm gonna be really bad at this game.
Do you have any idea what that is?
Is that a tape recorder?
It's a cart machine.
Cart machine. What is
Cartridge machine.
What is a cartridge machine?
It's a little. Do you remember the old 8-track tapes?
Of course I remember.
These were the precursors of 8-track tapes, and the professional version of an 8-track tape.
Yep.
Reel-to-reel tape inside, and they're only like 90 seconds, 40 seconds, 120 seconds, just enough for a commercial or two. and they had a label on there, and that's how you played commercials. You shoved it in a machine, pushed a button, and it started.
Yeah,
Oh.
right.
And that's what's so cool about it is back then you actually have to keep on switching
Yeah, keep on-
commercials.
yeah.
If it's
Keep
a
switching.
commercial set of like 5 commercials,
Yeah.
the DJ actually have to manually do that as opposed to now it's all in the computer and
Yeah.
display. Yeah.
So when we go on air, we have to prepare all the commercials for each commercial break, so it'd be like a
Stack it.
stack of.
Yeah.
Next, what is on the board? All right.
Easy.
This is easy. Anybody that know what that is, raise your hand. Erica, you really?
It's a Memopex.
Oh my goodness. I did not expect this much of a difference of what goes on in our heads. This is a reel to reel.
Yes.
This is what things needs to be recorded on back in the days. It wasn't, in your computer. So it was a big roll of tape. So that big disc, that's a roll of tape. And depending on the thickness of the tape, you could record 2 tracks of stereo, or 4 tracks, or 8 tracks. A 24 track, the tapes are like this wide. It's like a big roll of duct tape. And that's what you recorded on.
To record the show itself.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
So the shows weren't live back then?
No, it's live.
Oh,
But
okay.
anything that needs to be recorded needed to be
Okay.
recorded on something like that.
Sometimes
Okay.
because we need to record telephone calls.
Yeah.
And we record it on
Yeah.
this too.
The last thing. What is this? If you're a radio guy, you should know this. What is this, Erica?
Erica can guess now.
It's a reel-to-reel editor.
a real editor. There we go.
Kind of.
Kind of.
Yes, thank you guys.
Hey, so from your perspective, what is it? I mean, what does it look like to you? What do you do with it?
It looks like a license plate without the license. Or
Well,
like
just-
it looks like a, like when you cut paper on, where it tells you where the lines
You're
are
close.
to like the paper cutter.
She's
Is
smart.
that-
She's getting warm.
Oh,
All right,
that's how
Tone,
it
you
works.
wanna enlighten
Spicing block.
splicing block? Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
a splicing block for the reel-to-reel tape. So if you wanted to cut something, you put the piece of tape. You see the tracks on there. You put it on there. The angled stripes on there. That's where the knife went. And now it's you can cut and you can paste on your computer, right? Back in those days, when you cut, it meant you cut with a razor blade. When you paste, that meant you paste. There was a piece of tape that you would paste things together on that splicing block.
You could also cut your finger
You
off.
could,
Yeah.
Indeed,
Oh,
indeed.
The world it's definitely different. It has changed so much. How do you guys see, technology or streaming platforms, internet? How does that affect FM? And where do you see it going from this point on?
Well, I think a lot of people said when the internet, became a big thing, that it's a big threat to radio, right? Because there's so much more you can do. There's a lot of visuals, and that may be true in the beginning because it's very flashy. It's entertaining. So I see internet actually as a weapon for radio now because it actually opens up a lot of things that we couldn't do in the past. Now we can compete with TV stations like yourself, if we have the right talent and the content. Because, creating YouTube and video content is pretty simple and easy now.
Yep.
Right? So radio can be a TV station if they wanted to be.
There's much more a
There's
radio
much
station.
more.
can
Yeah,
be,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right.
It still goes back to the content
Yeah.
of what you provide.
Yeah.
And that's why podcasts are also very popular now.
Yeah, yeah.
People just want to hear good content rather than
Right.
flashy videos.
Right. And
right?
Erica, what about you?
When I started becoming a radio personality, the whole mysterious factor of being a DJ where no one really sees what you look like and they only hear your voice, that was no longer like a factor in doing radio. And like now ICRT is also live streams on Twitch. And in that way, like for example, call-ins, I actually also didn't experience the heyday of ICRT doing the call-ins because now I take requests through live stream, through the listeners on Twitch. And it's a different type of community.
Okay.
And I think it's, there's a lot of, I guess, different ways to listen to radio now.
Yeah.
So that opens up a lot of different audiences, I think, as well. But it may be more spread out.
Wow. So because of streaming, we can see the DJs now.
Yeah.
Right? So it's no more radio face.
No
So-
more radio.
So that's why we're all gone and you're on the air now. You got to look like that to do radio now. Jeez. Guys, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Big happy birthday to ICRT and thank you for watching today's Taipei Tonight Show. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
All right.
欢迎回家。
This is the engineer. He's still here. Oh, my goodness. This apartment. Hi. Oh, please. This is the apartment where they know how to party.
你还 还是这么年轻。
你也是，you look the same. And last but not least, good to see you.